Hey everybody, welcome to the Ethicsverse, the coolest place to be every Thursday at noon Eastern. If you are in ethics, compliance, human resources, legal, if you care about your workplace, you care about corporate integrity, this is the place to be. We got a great one for you today. I know I say that every week, but I actually mean it this week. Entertaining for impact. How comedy transforms employee engagement. We have the one and only Ronnie Feldman, who I'll introduce here in a second. A couple of quick announcements. You guys are going to love this. We're upgrading our game everywhere. So we have a link tree. So scan this QR code, jump into our link tree and subscribe to the Ethicsverse. You can subscribe to our webinars so that every single week you can see what's coming up. We got a couple of good ones coming up next week and the week after. So click that top button and do that. Follow us on our LinkedIn page. Best clips from our podcast, The Ethics Experts. This is the best podcast, the best ethics podcast out there, according to my mom. So you're going to want to check that out big time if you trust my mother. And follow me on LinkedIn if you dare. We have a link to our homepage. You can schedule a demo to see our tools. You can see our benchmark report, and our YouTube page is really popping. Okay, so we have a bunch of great content up there. All of our webinars are up there. All of our ethics experts podcasts are up there. Clips from, shorts, all that kind of stuff. So go to that link tree. You can scan this QR code on the right. Or you can just go ahead and type that in if you like. Giveaways for today. Today's prizes, again, we're giving away prizes now only to Ethicsverse members. So I highly encourage you to subscribe, okay? Best comments, best participation. We'll be reaching out to you to give you today's prize, which is Mary Shirley's new book, Level Up. So it's on pre-order right now. It's coming out in like a week or something. This book is phenomenal. It's really one of the best books in our space that I've read, and I've read them all. I guarantee it. So hit that QR code. If you don't want to wait for the drawing, you can just go ahead and pre-order that. You can grab your Kindle copy now. And we're giving away 5 of those because we love you. Next. Okay, so Ethico, we put out the best content, again, according to my mother. We have a really cool toolkit that's coming out. Compliance week is coming up in less than 90 days. So you got to start thinking about what you're going to do to engage your workforce during compliance week. So we have a toolkit coming out with a bunch of really fun things you can leverage. So stay tuned for that. We're putting the finishing touches on that, and that's going to be ready pretty soon. So compliance week is just such a great opportunity for you to show the people in your organization how different you are, to really get them to engage. Our job is to crowdsource risk intelligence at scale. That takes the authentic engagement of our workforce, and that's how we can really build that culture of integrity that we're all striving for. Also, we have custom benchmark reports. So if you're interested in a custom benchmark report, this is a no obligation thing for Ethicsverse participants. So you don't even have to be a member for this. So if you're interested in seeing this, drop a 1 into the chat right now, and someone will reach out to you. We'll schedule something, and we'll basically take some of your data, chart that against a couple of benchmarks that are out there, and give you some tips. So that's something you can keep under your pillow if you like. You can share that with your team, and people really love this. Speaking of things people really love, we did a demo of our next gen platform last week, and somebody fell out of their chair, if you can believe it. So we've poured a bunch of money into the tool. We've gotten a bunch of input from people on the front lines to really build a tool that's going to create leverage for your ethics and compliance team. So it connects to all the other systems that are out there. It gives you analytics at your fingertips, so you don't even have to plug into Power BI or anything like that. The analytics are great. Our disclosure tool is super flexible, and so it's your ethical responsibility to know what's out there, whether you're shopping now or you're shopping down the road. So please reach out to us if you'd like to explore that. All that said, we got the one and only Ronnie Feldman. How's it going, Ronnie?
Hello, hello, hello.
So Ronnie is the president and creative director of Learnings and Entertainments. If you don't know this guy, you absolutely should. They put out a ton of really great, shorts and things to really get your team engaged. So Ronnie came out of Second City, and he basically took so many of those tactics. He's funny down to the core, but he took so many of those tactics and really married them with a lot of great learning tactics to really engage the workforce. So that's really what we're going to be talking about today. Ronnie, you're looking great in the avatar. You're looking great in real life. So glad that you're here, buddy.
Fantastic, man. Thanks for having me on. It's always fun to to chat with you. So yeah, hey everybody, like today there's like basically a premise that I'm going to put out here right at the top, and then we're just going to chat about it. And I am an improviser by background, so if people have questions and want to take it in a different direction, we certainly can go in whatever direction you want to go. But the basic premise, like I've been in this corporate risk space for about 12 years now. I came out of this comedy institution called the Second City and had, strangely enough, built a corporate education business within this comedy theater. For those of you who know the Second City shorts, I ended up creating those for them. And then me and the original team broke off in 2016 to launch this company with the idea that something that I think we all kind of inherently know, and that is that comedy, humor, music, entertainment are really effective tools to engage people, to make people remember things more, to open up conversations. And so the thesis for today is really to kind of delve into that. There's a really solid business case for using these entertaining devices on these very serious subjects. But also we know that compliance professionals tend to be risk averse. So I tend to get the same questions over and over again. So if you all have some trepidation about this subject, please ask your questions and we'll talk about it. Because I believe to my core that this is a more effective way to run your program with empathy, humor, comedy, entertainment. I have a couple of slides, but we're just going to chat. Tell me what you think, Nick. What's your
I was just going to kind of underscore what you said. We always want these sessions to be valuable for you. And, if you have questions, you have comments, you have perspective, you have things that you've learned, tips that you've employed, please drop those in the chat and we will incorporate those as much as possible. Ronnie, are you able to control these slides yourself?
I think so. Let's give it a try. Let's see. Let me try one more thing. Oh, all right.
Boom. Okay, you got it.
Cool. I can't see you guys now.
And there's arrows on the main slide you can click. So you can do that as well. Or you just tug your ear a little and I'll change it for you, okay?
Yeah. Well, okay, now I got it. All right, I got it all figured out, everybody. Well, look, we're not going to be like tied to these slides, but I wanted to just start with something. Do people know who John Cleese is from Monty Python fame? I don't know what age range we have on here, but
we have everybody.
Monty Python, famous sketch troupe from way back when, made movies, television, film. Anyway, interesting thing about John Cleese, though, is this is back in the VHS days, used to teach a lot of business seminars about the use of humor. And I know when we started, me and my team started getting into this space, we're like, oh gosh, there's precedence for using humor on these very serious subjects. And I love what he says here. To me, it says it better than I can, which is the main evolutionary significance of humor is it gets us from the closed mode to the open mode faster than anything else. So when I first started creating, figuring, you can use humor for social satire, political satire, I'm like, oh, we can use it to highlight all these really interesting topics. Whether you believe that it's a way to help with memory and recall, which it is, whether you believe that or not, at the very least, what it does is get people to pay attention and listen to the very important things that you are about to say.
What's your favorite Monty Python movie? Now that we got John Cleese on here.
Oh my gosh! Well, geez, I love The Life of Brian. I mean, there's The Holy Grail. Those are the sort of 1 and 2 in my book. What about you?
I would have to say Fish Called Wanda.
Oh, sure. That's pretty great.
It counts.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I somehow didn't put that in the right category, but yeah, great movie. So I want to tell an anecdote that's related to compliance. So it's really an example of what this quote is all about. So we had this big Fortune 5 insurance company that their team was like, let's use these comedy videos for compliance. But the compliance officer was a little reticent about trying it. But so they acquired our videos. They started using them. But so there's an all hands meeting, and the compliance officer's like, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to play this video. So there's 1,000 people in the audience. He's streaming it. plays the video, dead silence. He's telling me the story. He's like, he's like, it's just dead. He's like, what did I do? I can't believe I listened to these people. Like I undermined myself. And then he says, a woman raises her hand and she goes, is it okay if we laugh? And he's like, yes. And he said he didn't realize until that moment the sort of fear and apathy in the room, that they weren't really even engaging in what he was saying until they put this thing out. So he didn't get like the visceral laugh out of it. But what he did is he sort of shocked him into like paying attention. And so to me, that's the point. You can use it integrated with the learning, but you could also use it to just get people to pay attention.
So I had Virginia from Agilent on the ethics experts last week, and her team, Krista is over there as well. They have built a really phenomenal program, and what they've done is they've really humanized that program. And she was telling me, so check out that episode. I think you guys are really going to like it a lot. I think it's coming out in next week or something. But they went to the sales summit and they had a session there. And out of the entire sales summit, their session was the highest reviewed one. The compliance session was the highest reviewed one because they really brought a lot of humor into the conversation. They really humanized it, and it really knocked down a lot of walls. And I think, at the stage that we're at, when we're really trying to drive engagement from our employee base, when we're trying to build this culture of integrity, if we don't have that human element, people are just going to be following rules. We want people to do the right thing because they want to do the right thing, and many times they just don't know what that right thing is. If we can get into their mind, as John Cleese says, to open them up through humor, it helps knock down some walls, and it helps to imagine what the ethics and compliance department can and should be. So I don't think that anecdote you said, Ronnie, is like that atypical. I think many times, the stuff we're talking about is very serious, and, we need to, pay sort of proper attention to those things. But that doesn't mean that we can't humanize that experience. And I just, I really encourage you to push a little bit further, kind of push the envelope a little bit, because you're probably not going to screw anything up. We have to say things 7 times, seven ways to take that rule of thumb from marketing. And that gives us a lot of budget, so to speak, to experiment and A/B test different messaging. And the more sort of facets we can place on the shape of our messaging, the higher our odds are of resonating with this diverse employee base that we're trying to influence.
It's so great that you said that. I probably have this somewhere in the presentation down the road, but it's true. Like that, to me, the most effective way, the way to mitigate the risk of your training in comms so that it's most effective, is to try lots and lots and little things.
100%.
Compliance, right? We tend to be too precious about it. Like, what's the thing that's going to work for our multinational, multicultural, global audience of 20,000 people? Like, it doesn't exist. The best way to get the most people engaged is to do lots and little things. Lots of comms and awareness, because it does start to have a halo effect on the program. This slide here, people won't go to the office of no. We've heard this before, right? I often start conversations with my clients and prospects. I say, when you walk into a room, what kind of face do people make? And it's not so much a judgment on your personality and positivity. It's that these words have meaning before you enter the room. In comedy, we would say you're not playing to a warm room. You have to dig out of a hole. And this is a problem, because if you had to choose between somebody knowing the rules and knowing the rules but not liking compliance, or not knowing the rules and liking compliance, I would choose the latter, because then they will ask for your help. People do not ask for help when they're bored, annoyed, or afraid. And I feel like it's something we need to talk about. The brand of compliance is very important. We actually have another one of these webinars coming up in about a month, talking specifically about branding and rebranding compliance. That's a whole interesting subject. But basically, just to land the point, we've all heard this, the office of no, the speed bump, like they think of us this way, and then they won't reach out to you. So it's a misconnect. And one of the things that entertainment and humor and comedy and music and game shows and talk shows and these other creative things that we use in our everyday lives By
Right.
applying it to these subjects, it makes it more accessible and digestible, and it actually makes you more accessible. So people will come talk to you. They'll stop you in the hallways. They'll start inviting you to meetings.
So there's a couple of comments in the chat, Ronnie, and Sandra says it depends on your audience, and Sandy says there needs to be a balance, and we need to know our audience. How do you kind of think through what that balance needs to be, and what kind of a framework would you give folks to start to navigate through that? Because I think, to your point, people don't want to like overstep the line, right? But how do you think about that?
Well, there's a couple ways to think about it. First of all, like I know we draw you in by talking about comedy, but truly what we're talking about is different ways to engage people. I call my company Learnings and Entertainments because entertainment is broader than just comedy. There's some of the things we talked about. Like I often use music quite a bit because music is earwormy and less polarizing than telling jokes. So you can, we know this from when we were kids, Schoolhouse Rock, 1-800-Cars for Kids. Like there's lots of ways that people use music as a way to get people to memorize things. And stories are really good techniques, which again, don't have to be funny, but a good, we're used to seeing sort of the badly acted vignettes in these trainings that we do, but it doesn't have to be that way. There's lots of ways to use drama and storytelling and podcasts. I mean, we listen to podcasts, and those are all entertaining devices that aren't quote unquote comedic, but they are more engaging. So yes, when I hear balance, what I'm hearing is, well, yeah, we can't be too frivolous about this. And I argue this to the day I die, that being entertaining does not undermine the message. It elevates the message if you do it correctly and do it well. So yes, a balance. Balance is always good. Try different things. I often say, like, if you have like a really a long training that's a bit long and bloated, but it's got the stuff that you need in there, and you want to make sure, then you could put these little palate cleansers and these little commercials of videos in there to break it up. So it doesn't even have to be the whole thing. It can be put the fun thing either in the important thing or put the fun thing next to the important thing and drive traffic there. I feel like is a good balance.
Yeah, I think I think that's right. And I love what Beatrice just said. She said accessibility, it goes two ways. If you go to them and show genuine interest in what they're doing, they will come to you as well. And again, what I think she's talking about is that establishing that sort of authentic connection. And that authentic connection can come in a number of different ways. Your employee base is not a monolith, and you have to have a little bit of something for everybody. Again, the end goal is not to make folks laugh. The end goal is to keep people engaged so that your message can be delivered and actually absorbed versus bouncing off of them because they're bored or because they're annoyed or because they're afraid.
Should I show a video just so that I want to make sure we get some fun stuff?
Yeah, show it.
They're the office of no. They say no more than my toddler.
They say no more than someone raising a puppy.
They're like the no buffet. They've got hot buttered no, cream spinach flake no, spicy Szechuan no.
They're like a piñata full of no's.
They're like the Department of Rejection. Ouch.
That sounds like me in high school.
Country fried no, no almondine.
They have more no's than a herd of elephants. Ha! Elephants have trunks. Nice try, though.
Gluten-free no, poached no with no sauce.
If there were a superhero called Productivity Man, their nemesis would be Dr. No.
They're like a magic 8-ball. All signs say no. Ask again later. Okay, those are pretty clever.
Not too bad.
Believe it or not, we try really hard to help find solutions.
We're here to provide advice.
And support.
And information.
To help you navigate the workplace within the rules.
Actually, if you think about it, we are the Office of No.
Get it? K-N-O-W.
The Office of No.
The Office of No.
The Office of No.
Banana cream no, Jello no, vanilla no with rainbow noes, nosicles. What? Oh, no.
Love it.
Hey, there we go. Well, so basically it's sort of we took Jimmy Kimmel's does this thing called mean tweets, and then we asked our compliance officers, what are all the things people say about you? And we made a bunch of videos about it to basically call out their truth and then slowly debunk it as a way to kind of saying, hey, like, we know what you think about us, but we're not actually that. So that's an example of a way that's not even a training on a policy. It's a short communication that can be used to sort of debunk this myth that we're these finger waggy, corporate cops, when what we really are is teachers, advisors, and coaches. So
right. But it's all about that reframe. And it's all about bringing some, humanizing ourselves in these roles and kind of shedding that that stereotype that many people are bringing with them from their last organization or their last, engagement with somebody from our department. If you can reframe that a little bit and you can plant that seed that we're a little bit different, you very quickly can get a much deeper level of engagement. And I think that's what we're going for.
Yeah. I wanted to get a little deeper into sort of the, I don't know, it might bounce into a couple different subjects here, but this idea of push to audience. I'm still learning how to do the slide thing. Sorry about that, guys.
You're doing great, buddy.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. All right. So I have a question for you. I had this discussion with one of my clients the other day, and I said, I have a question for you. How much of your time, money, and resources goes towards actually trying to prevent bad things from happening versus measuring, the bad things that happen and showing collecting data on what you're doing so that you can show the regulators that you're doing something? And I'm wondering what you think the percentage is of where our money and time goes. What do you think about? I don't have an actual stat, but I just want this. I think it's an interesting discussion.
I would imagine it's probably under 20% of like actual effective prevention.
Yes, I feel like if you start thinking about all the things that we do, we do risk assessments, super important, right? Let's find out where the problems are. Let's set up controls so that when a problem pops up, we know about it, right? Or we can flag it. Then we do training. We mostly do the training focusing on, like, most of these vendors that I know, I have friends in a lot of them, but they're like, yeah, measurements. Look at all these analytics. Right? So they're starting there, but pushing out something that tends to be kind of boring and bloated and I would argue undermines trust because people feel like you're wasting their time. And then they're think about, all the time that you spend trying to track down completion rates. I can't even tell you how many people I talk to. They're like, gosh, I got to send out 20 emails and I got to go after the managers. And then all the time and money on investigations, right? And then measuring and tracking all that. I got to think that that's 90% of all the funds that are there. And often, I mean, this is self-interest. Then sometimes they're like, well, we really love to do more communications and more fun stuff. We just ran out of time and money. And I believe it should be the opposite, that if you were starting from scratch and we didn't know anything about compliance, we should be going like, what are the things that actually help change behavior or influence behavior? And then start building programs that do that and then start measuring that. And I think if we thought about it that way, we would completely, I'm not saying it should be 90% the other way, but I think we should be shifting the way we do things so that we're actually trying to prevent problems. I mean, if that's what we're trying to do, I don't know. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, you can't drive looking in the rearview mirror. And so many of our activities are those ex post activities, right? These sort of after the fact things. And, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, or whatever that saying is. Getting out ahead of it and, telling people what they need to know, planting those seeds, I think can do a lot to add, it actually adds a lot of time for us to move from that sort of reactionary mode, that like highly urgent, highly important area where we spend most of our time, and dedicate more of our time to that important non-urgent stuff that's actually going to move the needle from a risk mitigation perspective. There's a great comment here where someone said, I've done funny videos addressing compliance dilemmas using employees as actors, and employees love it. And that's something that I think, this is not 1996 anymore, where you have to have a massive film crew in order to like get some content out. Like, it's all been democratized. We all have in our phone, or, we all have on our phone, the equivalent to $1,000 camera. And there's all these editing tools and so forth. It's not that hard to put out more content. And by engaging people in the organization, whether it's middle managers, whether it's what we call speak up heroes, somebody who's spoken up about something, willing to be identified, who has sort of gone through that process and leveraging their story as a mechanism of storytelling, it just resonates on such a deeper level, and it really humanizes a lot of these rules that we're trying to push out into our organization. And, if you can get into that scientist's mindset, and you can get into, like we were talking about last week, like thinking in bets, you can make a bunch of little bets, and you can see like what's really resonating, what's really moving the needle. And then you can start to double down on those things. And I think that thinking in bets framework coupled with this democratization of, media production, or, access to tools like, the tools and the the videos and stuff that Ronnie's organization does, it can allow you to really scatter a lot more seeds and see which ones are going to take root.
Couple other quick examples, Nick. We end up doing, for ones that don't want content but they want to involve their people, we've done person on the street, where we get a character goes around and interviews people. We won some awards for what work we did with BMO Financial, because their tagline was "Words and Actions Matter," and so we created a character named Actions Matterly, and we roved around and it's sort of like Billy on the street or jaywalking and all that stuff. Although what we do is we say the dumb things, and then employees say these lovely, wonderful things about like, no, we speak up when we come across problems. Or if we're remote now, so we do a lot of like online Zoom style talk shows. So again, we tend to put a comedic host that maybe says the not so smart thing. We just made one for a company called Dexcom, which is a great progressive organization. They make like insulin devices, and the name of the show is Ethically Speaking with Your Host Sugar Levels, which is just ridiculous, but makes me laugh. But another example that's not from our company, U.S. Bank, Katie Lawler and her group, they do something called, I forget what they call it, but it's like the ethics ride share, I think. And it's basically the ethics officer interviewing a leader in a car. And it's not funny, but it's just enough of a creative framework that they have these leadership interviews. So there's ways to do it with big budget and small budget. Sorry, let me give you one other idea I just thought of. We once pushed out like a jingle to this company, and they had their team make selfie videos. They say, hey, have a contest, make a selfie video lip syncing to the Speak Up song. And then people did that, and then they got user generated content from employees talking about their boards speaking up. So that was a real cheap way to get like lots of stuff.
I mean, there's so much value in a message being delivered, not just from you, but by other peers in the organization. And what a smart way to kind of crowdsource that. Daniela said, my organization doesn't have the most user-friendly way to share content like this. What would you say to somebody like that? Because I sure have an idea.
Well, I guess it depends what the technology issues. Like, it's certainly harder to get at like a non-computer based workforce. So there's some interesting techniques to do there. Like, obviously there's like, people do the posters, but we know those don't work. So I've had companies put like the QR code on the poster or hand out business cards, but have that connected to a fun video and then switching out that video. So that's a sort of a low tech way to get them accessing content. One of the techniques that we do even if you don't have like an LMS is if something is short and fun. So 90 seconds, for us, short is like 60 to 90 seconds. For me, long is like 3 minutes. But as you take a 60-second video, you give it to leaders and you say, hey, play this once a week, once a month during your regular department meetings over Zoom as a commercial. And if it's short and fun, you can get others to deliver that on your behalf, versus if you're something boring, they're just not going to do it. What are your ideas?
Yeah, I think, well, you stole them. So another idea. No, but I mean, you could send an email around, even if you have a workforce that's not in front of computers. You can send an email around to folks with a link to that video that would just play in a browser. Crowdsourcing, distribution channels, which is what you're talking about, by having leaders put that on their Zoom meetings. Like, who doesn't have an extra 60 seconds or an extra 90 seconds on a Zoom meeting to place some kind of a commercial? And, something else, Of course, if you have, of course, buy this stuff from Ronnie. If you don't have budget though, like we have to get into solve for outcome mentality. And so like you are constantly likely scrolling social media and there's stuff that like sticks out to you, that jumps out to you. And there's certain videos that you end up watching all the way through. And there's certain videos that you just look at for 5 seconds and move on. If you can start to look for what is making the videos that capture your attention resonate with you, you can start to replicate those things again pretty easily using TikTok, using Instagram, using any of these tools out there like CapCut or InShot or whatever, to start to build some of those things and just kind of experiment with it. And those are really low cost ways to put some more arrows in your quiver to fight this battle of attention, which is the battleground that we're in. We're playing a game of attention. We have to overcome the attention barrier that everybody has erected, and in order to start to land those ideas in their minds.
I want to make a couple of points, and I'm going to click through a couple slides just to make this point really quickly, and then we could talk about it. But I feel like this says training and prevention, but I would argue that training is not necessarily the best preventative tool, because training tends to be long and boring and infrequent, and you have limited, seat time. You don't want people taking time off their jobs. I feel like a more effective way to see this positivity, this culture of ethics, this culture of integrity, this culture of speak up is more communication and awareness. Because it's you can drive traffic to policies and resources. You can embed commercials. Love the idea of commercials, because it does. What does a commercial do? It just sees a quick idea and tells you to go here for help. And so the idea that we're talking about, like these contests that for some reason people only do during Ethics Week, but we should be doing them all year round. You could do the post and push. Post the fun thing on the internet next to the policy, push it out, drive traffic back to the policy, measure that change in click-through rates. Give the videos to leaders, say play it during a Zoom meeting once a month, certify that you did that. Embed in other departments' newsletters. I love that people have ethics newsletters, but people don't typically read them. So either if you have one, put a fun thing in there. But if not, put a fun thing in a fun commercial in a sales training, in a leadership training, in a product training, in their newsletters. So you're just showing up where people are versus pushing all the time. I think these are really interesting ways to increase your visibility. I actually didn't go through any of the slides. Did you want to comment, or I feel like you wanted to jump in?
We got a great question from Terry. Hey, Terry, and this is one that I've heard several times, and I'd love your take on it. What are some ways to overcome cultural challenges and the use of humor for a global company? So there's this famous story of, maybe you've seen this documentary of when they tried to put Everybody Loves Raymond, they tried to push that over to Russia, and it just wasn't resonating. And they made some small tweaks to the format and to kind of the angle, and then it ended up blowing up and being, even, I think he made more money off of the Russia Everybody Loves Raymond than the American one. So we're not saying that, or I wouldn't say that, one thing is going to work across the board. But how do you think about that for a global organization that wants that, they're hearing what you're talking about, it's resonating with them. They see wow, if I can sort of engage people through humor or, something that's just, more engaging in general, but I have these different sort of cultures that I have to navigate through. How would you tell someone to think about that? Yeah.
Well, it's making me realize that there's a lot I want to say about this. This could probably be its own webinar, but a couple thoughts. Engaging a global workforce is a challenge. I always feel back to something we said at the top, if you're trying to do one thing to engage a global, multicultural, multinational, multi-generational workforce, it doesn't exist. And I think partially for time and money, we're all right, but we only have time for one thing, so we're going to push out the one thing. I don't care if you translate that in all the languages, it's not going to work because everyone has different sensibilities. So that's one thought is about trying to segment your audience as much as possible. So if you have something that you think is really great, but you're not 100% sure that maybe it's joke heavy, so that, wordplay doesn't always translate so well, maybe that's a North American thing. But I found that music tends to translate pretty well globally because it tends to be thematic and again, less wordplay. I think things that involve your actual employees tend to work globally. So these talk shows where you're interviewing real people in those local markets. There's and again, it doesn't have to be humor. Like, entertaining is important. Storytelling is the most effective thing that I think. And stories don't have to be boring. Think about all the stories we have in compliance. It's about fraud and corruption and harassment and retaliation. These are meaty, tragic, but meaty subjects. Our most popular video series is called Tales from the Hotline, and it's real stories that we got about bad things that people did. And we just have comedians tell them so they have more energy. And those translate really well because you're telling a story about things that happened. So I guess I would leave you with the idea that to the extent that you can segment your audience, super helpful, meaning more targeted. And second is like try more things and doesn't have to be funny. Talk to me, email me after. I'll be happy to put together a one sheet on some of these techniques, because there's a variety of ways to do this. Some of which we just said. Do you have anything else you want to put a button on that?
There's just so many great comments. Thank you guys for dropping these in there. Beatrice again said, coming back to the beginning, know your audience, test your message with a few diverse persons prior to your presentation. I think that's super smart. You probably have someone in these different jurisdictions or these different countries that you can float some messaging to see if that's gonna resonate. And she said also tailor your presentations to your audience. If you see it's not working, don't stick to your script. I think that's spot on. That gets back to that kind of thinking in bets thing and our willingness to sort of be fluid and pivot, because we're not shooting one shot. We're shooting a bunch of different shots, and we're using a bunch of different messaging to convey our message. Go ahead.
Can I jump in? Right, I just thought of it.
Yeah.
And part of it is like, okay, say that joke didn't translate well or whatever, but they come across going like, oh, that was weird, that was different. It does have that halo effect. The act of trying shows that you care. Remember, if they feel, we all have a lot of friends who aren't in compliance, and when they find out what I do, they're like, oh gosh, and I'm like, if they feel, a lot of employees feel that you are just checking a box, because if you bore them and waste their time, and they think you're just pushing liability on them. So anything that is engaging, interesting, interactive, empathetic, seeds the idea that you care and you try, and they're more likely to come ask you for help, even if they didn't get the training. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Like, yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think that intentionality and that, whether the joke lands or not, if you're trying to rebrand yourself and you're trying to come across different, and you can do that pattern interrupt relative to other experiences they've had at other organizations, or if you're really trying to break that like sort of stereotype, that is going to work in and of itself, regardless of whether they're like slapping their knee, falling out of their chair, laughing at your attempt at humor. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And remember that this isn't a new idea. From personal experience back to my Second City days, even to L&E, it's been a dozen years now. We worked with probably 30% of the Fortune 1000 at some point, doing things like this. And it's pretty rare when it goes bad. It's hard for me to even think of an example. There's so many more positive experiences. Again, it doesn't have to be one thing. The more things that you can try. I did a podcast with Starbucks, which I love their team. What they call awareness communication training, the ACT team, and they basically said the same thing. They're just like, yeah, we're not too precious about it. Sometimes we do things and it doesn't work, and we're willing to accept the quote unquote blowback from that, because we get so much more out of the positivity and the creativity of engagement.
Well, I would argue that it's only upside. What's the downside? Somebody's going to watch your attempt at doing something different and say, I'm going to now like violate these rules on purpose. It's just not going to happen. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, no one's going to act out against it unless you have like a company full of psychopaths, if anything, it's a pattern interrupt.
I love the term pattern interrupt. You will get, to be fair, I get a lot of my clients ask me this. They say, what if someone says, well, it's too important, you can't make fun of it? And again, it's a fundamental misunderstanding. In humor and comedy, we say, if you're punching down, that's bullying. If you're making fun of people, that's not a good use of humor. But there's 1,000 different examples of ways we use it to Well, think about it. We use it to satirize the public figures. We use it to promote, to highlight some truth. They would say, Gilda Radner she says, comedy is just truth, only faster. So we always say, study humor. You find something that's true, heighten and exaggerate it. We often use characters for that. Like we'll create a fictitious character to say the dumb thing that people do, and they laugh at that. But it's a way of like highlighting this problem. So there's a lot of ways to use humor in service of a message. The Geico commercials always make me laugh. They don't make fun of their product. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, and I just think like,
or,
yeah, I have another comment. We don't want to punch down, of course. You want to poke up, perhaps, but like an exaggeration of a violation is always going to be kind of funny or at least memorable, right? So like if there's a certain behavior you don't want people to do, really accentuating that in some kind of a video or some kind of a piece of content is going to help really illustrate what you don't want them to do to, I think, a greater degree. And that I think is universally applicable. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Let me click through a couple slides. I just want to make it just a second. This is a study that the ECI group did a couple years back, and it's the frequency of speak up training in comms. And basically what this says is 69% of companies do speak up training once a year, and the majority is less than that. And so that's essentially what it says. Most people are doing speak up training or speak up communication campaigns once a year. And then there's this other quote, which is, people need to be reminded more than they need instruction. So I want to separate training and communication, because you may want to train on, corruption. You may want to train on conflicts, or you may have a short. I always say do that quickly and efficiently as you can. But really, what we need to do, particularly when it comes to speak up, is we want that message to go out over and over and over and over again as often as possible, so that you see this idea of psychological safety. So that people know that you're a safe space to come to for help. And entertainment is the reason it's important, is because then you can play things over and over and over again without message fatigue. You can remind people more often. So that's why when we talk about training and comms, like training isn't always the best way to create a culture, to create a social environment, to create psychological safety. That's communication awareness. Training for examples, tell stories, but advertise your help and support all the time. One last thing just on this topic. This is from Amy Poehler. Everybody knows Amy Poehler from SNL. She's a Second City alum too. And she was talking about improv, and she says it's easier to be brave when you're not alone. But obviously that it translates to our community as well. We need to kind of create this community of you are supported, you're safe, you're protected. Speaking up is not telling. It's like the way we keep people in check. And you can't do that once a year. So again, just to belabor the point, entertainment is a good way to get this message out more frequently, so you can create that social environment.
Love it.
And scene. I'm going to move to another slide, but if there's another question that's up, I'm happy to take it.
I had one, but I lost it here because there's so many comments pouring in, which I love. So many emojis pouring in, so many comments pouring in. I love it. I just wanted to share what Candace said. Candace said, I like changing out posters quarterly. I know it's not the best tool, but I feel like people notice when those posters are always the same and when they change. I think we notice, we get that kind of like environmental blindness, right? Like we're kind of wired to see differences and we're wired to see movement, and changing those things are going to get you another look. Doing something different, again, interrupting that pattern is such a psychological hack, because we are trying to influence hearts and minds. We're not just trying to, print out a policy and jam that down people's throats. They're not going to read it. They're not going to absorb it. If we can interrupt those patterns, hack them psychologically, and really drive that influence, our odds of them acting in the way that we want them to act is going to be a lot higher. And again, most malfeasance in an organization, if you want to call it that, or most kind of violations in an organization, from my experience, are due to ignorance, not arrogance, not a desire to do the wrong thing. I think we have those people on the tail that are they're never going to do the right thing. That's not the battleground. The battleground is that 95% of folks in the middle who can be converted into ambassadors and advocates for our program, but we have to overcome that attention barrier, and that comes through not from a pillar of training once a year, but through constant communication, constant messaging. That's how we get people to act.
Agree 100%. I love the idea of changing out the posters, and it falls in with the idea that of also like switching out where the poster goes. If you put the QR codes, that gives you the ability to obviously you need a campaign to tell people that you got a new video to check out each month. There's also that back idea of commercials, like in a manufacturing environment, they probably do weekly safety, maybe even daily safety meetings. So anyway, you can kind of hack into existing training channels by putting these commercials in is a way to kind of reach people.
Great point. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Hold on. Let me. So Candace just said, I wish that people in our companies, like leaders, would join just for one of these webinars so they can see how passionate we are about our jobs and about getting our messages out. So I love that. I agree with that. I would encourage everybody, if you're passionate about this, let that passion out across the board. Let that out across your organization, in your conversations with leaders. If you look at just sort of basic sales, sales is a sale happens when there's a transfer of emotion. If we have all this passion, but we bottle it up because we don't think it's professional, or we don't think that's how we're supposed to act, we end up leaving so much influence on the table. Like everybody I talk to at conferences, we were just at a conference earlier this week. Everyone is so passionate about this stuff. Everybody is in this industry because they want to make the world a better place. They want to make their workplaces better. They want to drive an authentic culture of integrity to each employee's, day-to-day experience. That passion is like our superpower. And I think if we can have the confidence to start letting that out more and letting more of our authentic selves out in our communication, in our interactions, we start to get that kind of little by little, all at once explosion of influence. So I really encourage you guys to let that passion out. And you know what? Bring your CEOs in, bring your leaders in, because this is a brand issue. This is a reframe. We have to reframe how folks look at us. And when we can do that, it's like floodgates, Go ahead. Sorry, buddy.
That's all right. I interrupted you, but this is exactly what I wanted to talk about. To me, like if I had to summarize, if I were building a program from scratch, I would do two things. Here's how I would spend the money. One, increase comms and awareness. In some ways, I'm not minimizing the importance of training, but I would say train less, communicate more, shift the balance of that. And that's to get to that psychological safety, that social environment, that, more communication about integrity, speak up. We're here to support you. There's a sense of organizational justice, like all that psychological safety stuff. Do that all the time. That's to get at the social. There's no time to go to it, but there's all the behavioral science talks about knowledge is only one of the factors of why people do things. It's the social environment, the culture.
100%.
Is what. So the things that we're talking about, get at that. The other thing is, if I were going to spend $1 on the training budget, it would be to train leaders, and then after you train leaders, give leaders tools to educate and engage others. In other words, and this is why entertainment is again super, super helpful. So you have to engage leaders about their additional responsibilities. If we have time, I have a video on this. And then the idea of giving, making it simple and easy for leaders to deliver that training, which is a short, fun video with talking points. Play this on your own. I feel like that, because the two main influences on what people do what they do is leadership influence. The study is, Stanley Milgram. The Stanley Milgram study talks about the influence of leadership and how people will do things that are against their principles if the boss tells them to. So train leaders, get them to do it. And then the other is this all the studies about the social environment. That candid camera video, if you've ever seen it, about in the elevator, gets people to do silly things in the elevator just because other people are doing it. So
everybody's facing the wall or something like that.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I just have to say this. You guys have to check out Virginia. You have to check out Krista. The program that they have is phenomenal. Listen to this podcast that's coming out on the ethics experts. They have totally weaponized this thing. And it kind of goes back to what I just saw a comment here. The podcast is the Ethics Experts, the best, again, my mom says, the best ethics podcast out there in the world, okay? But it's coming out, Virginia from Agilent is on there, and I think Krista's on this webinar too, but somebody just said, I just lost the comment, but we have to be comfortable. Oh, here it is. Mary Jo said, we can't be afraid to be a bit goofy sometimes, show that side of us that we want the business to see. Again, humanize yourself, push that out there. And it creates so much leverage because we are dealing with human beings. We're not dealing with robots. You know what I'm saying? Sorry, you were going to say something though.
No, I was actually, I thought there was a specific episode you wanted to point him to. I wanted to make sure you talked, but you did. I didn't catch it on the first time around.
Yep.
You tell me. We have 8 minutes. We can take more questions. I could show it on the video.
Why don't we show a video and then why don't we look at another video just to give some people some ideas of what's possible and what other folks are doing, and then let's get some more questions and comments. This is really a great session, Ronnie.
All right, cool. Well, so this video is about 3.5 minutes, so it's a little bit longer than the other ones, but it's on ethical leadership.
I got a 90-second limit, so can you 2x it? I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I want to show it because this one's a little weird, but I really enjoy it so much. It's about ethical leadership. So it's just an interesting example.
It's time for training jams. Gonna be jamming out while we train.
Leaders, you have a big impact on the culture, so you have some additional responsibilities.
Leaders, near and far, we got a lot to discuss. 'Cause when it comes to ethical culture, you're driving the bus. Talking about a beep, 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 honk, honk, beep, beep, honk, honk, vroom, vroom.
Make sure to create a space for employees to voice their ideas and concerns.
Can't leave it up to luck. You better leave that door open. Encourage them to check in. Don't rely on hoping, no.
Listen to their concerns. Take them seriously.
Don't stay out of sight, out of mind. Don't be willfully blind. Got to make the time.
Make sure to maintain a high level of employee confidentiality.
Take the info in, don't be quick to disagree. And don't engage in gossip, don't be spilling all that tea, no.
Make sure to regularly share the policies and resources that are available.
Policies, the code, the helpline's there for help. But they don't work if you just keep them to yourself.
Don't diminish the importance of the rules and doing business the right way.
Don't pay lip service and roll your eyes. They don't see it when you patronize.
Communicate the values of the organization and share your experience navigating ethical dilemmas.
No, we gotta talk together. You gotta share so they know it's not just about profits, it's also how we get there, yeah.
Make sure you address unethical conduct when you encounter it. No need to investigate on your own. Escalate and get support.
Don't look the other way. Ignoring problems leads to decay. And don't just take it from me and take it from my 12 cavities.
Remember that retaliating against an employee that raises an issue is never tolerated.
Payback and revenge. Leave that mess at the door. We need to hear what's going wrong so that way there won't be more.
If you have questions or need advice, there are a host of people, policies, and resources to support you. You have a huge impact on the culture. So let's help make the workplace safe, fair, and productive for everyone.
Leaders own the culture. You set the pace, you set the tone. But you're not alone. Need advice? Grab that phone. Leaders own the culture. You set the pace, you set the tone. But you're not alone. Need advice? Better grab that phone.
This has been Training Jams.
Training Jams.
Ethical leadership.
Ethical leadership. Honk, 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 beep, beep. Honk, honk, beep, beep. Honk, honk, beep, beep. I love cars.
Very good.
So anyway, I know that was a little bit longer, but obviously that was sort of a higher budget project that we worked on, but we made like a dozen of those. And I thought it's really fun because there are jokes in there, but it's really, we're literally reading to them the issue and then just singing, echoing it through song or echoing what an employee might say. So
again, it's just such a pattern interrupt, and it's an application of that principle you said earlier of like deliver the message, but put something kind of memorable around it, and that's what that entire video is. So if anybody likes these videos, reach out to Learnings and Entertainments, reach out to Ronnie on LinkedIn or wherever. Yeah, Jack just dropped an email address in there for you. So if you want to reach out to Ronnie and see what he has to offer, again, I think it's great.
So even if
what are we talking about here? This luxury.
Oh, I just was making the point, like when it comes to ethics, compliance, training, communication, it's not the extra thing that you run out of time for. I feel like it's an important part of rebranding who you are, about making things more engaging and memorable, about opening up conversation. I feel like it's something that makes us a more effective program, and I think there's a good business case for it. And by the way, even if you don't need, I'm happy to provide free. You don't need to buy our video. I would love that, but I'm happy to talk to anybody about different strategies, even if it's something you need to do in-house on your own.
Yeah, we have to break the status quo. We have to break away from what got us here. Like we all have these programs in place. We all have these challenges ahead of us, and small tweaks to what we're doing can really have an outsized impact on the achievement of our goals. Creativity is essential. It's not some luxury. Us doing things differently is not some luxury. It's absolutely essential. Us, breaking away from old tools, old thought patterns, old approaches are our only hope of growing our programs and having the impact that we know we can have. But again, it takes a different mindset, and it takes doing different things. We can't keep doing what we've been doing and expect a different result. So we hope that this session has been valuable for you. Every single week, we take very seriously the hour that you spend with us. Obviously, we give out CEU credits, so those will be on the way. Replays are available. If you have ideas for other content, please let us know. We have the next couple of months all scheduled out. But I'm just so proud to be a part of this community that we're all a part of. Your network is your net worth. You have to expand that. You have to reach out to more people. You have to, broaden that network that you have, because we have to take advantage of this collegial thing that we're a part of. Everybody is fighting the same fight in their organizations. Everyone is trying to build this culture of integrity, and they're trying to build it authentically. And you don't have to do it alone. So reach out to somebody, reach out to Ronnie, reach out to us, reach out to all these, everybody dropped their LinkedIn URLs at the top of the chat. Reach out and start expanding. Stick your toe in the water, and very quickly you're going to see some massive leverage created for your program. So round of applause for Ronnie. Give us some hearts, give us some laughs, give us some claps. Ronnie, you're the man, dude. I had a great time today. Thanks for sharing so much of what you do, so much of your perspective, and I hope everybody who stayed found this to be a valuable session. Any parting words, Ronnie?
Thanks so much. Be creative, try new things, have a good time. It'll help. And by the way, it's more fun for you too.
And if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. Don't forget that. Okay, have a little fun with this game. This is a fun game to influence people and to show them that the caring that's wired inside of them is can and should be, shown out in your organization, right? You have to show people that it's safe to do that, and you have to lead the way. So, thank you guys so much. See you next week. We're going to be look on the schedule. There's a really good one next week about messaging. Okay. See you guys.